Thank you, sir. So when COVID-19 came in, before we had any lead to what is going to happen, what will not happen, all of us knew one thing for sure, that we have to wear masks no matter what, and that is the most important thing which will help us prevent COVID-19. But then when we started using masks, again, there was a lot of challenges. Using of face mask increases the ocular surface inflammation, and it negatively impacts the quality of life, especially in patients with dry disease. And prolonged use may be relevant, and it might impact the dry disease. Also, on the other hand, it was of course, when you wear a mask properly, it might be okay. But if the mask is not put properly, or if there is any gaps in where you put the mask, the air might disperse around the eye in a wrong direction, and it might cause evaporation of dry eye disease. Now we all know that whenever there is the air which is exhaled from when we are breathing, it contains a lot of carbon dioxide. So whenever this exhaled air is going towards the eye, it actually makes your surface hyper, it enhances first the evaporation of the tear film, and it also induces hypercapnia to our surface. So we wanted to study in our lab that, whether there's an impact of mask on ocular surface. Are the mask associated ocular surface changes different from dry eye? And will it have an impact on our clinical practice? So what we did was, we had for a set of study, we had few samples of the patients for whom we had the dry eye metrics, the tear markers, and the ocular wash. So we went back and took out the same cohort of the patients where we had all the data related to dry eye, tears, and immune wash. And we called the same set of subjects who were, of course, using mask for more than 8 hours. We chose different type of mask use, and we did the same set of tests for these patients just to see what is happening on their ocular surface. So what we found interesting was that, of course, in the dry eye metrics, there was increase in the Schirmer's test, like the Schirmer's test 1 value and the T-BUT, there was a significant increase. And at the same point of time, there was increase in the discomfort of the patient as well. There was both increase in the discomfort subscale and the vision subscale. So this was something which was not explaining what we are dealing with, because when you're dealing with an evaporative dry condition, your T-BUTs are reduced, your Schirmer's might be normal or reduced, and your OSDI scoring would be on the higher side. But here, if you see that T-BUTs are on the higher side, then what are we actually dealing with? Is this the ocular surface discomfort related to mask? And what are the factors driving the discomfort in spite of having normal tear film metrics? So again, this was what the method was used for our tear marker test and the ocular wash. We did subject them to the flow cytometry to do the molecular factor analysis and study specific cell types and quantified them and compared them the pre-COVID era and the post-COVID era. So now I would like to invite Dr. Swami to explain us what was happening in this comparison.
This question was solved because of the biorepository system and the excellent clinical colleagues, because they had documented every part of it. And what you can see here in the tear metrics, as well as the ocular wash, there is a distinct change in the immune cell subtype, very different from that of the classical dry eye. For want of time, I'm not going to get too much into that, but I want to point towards the seesaw, which you see on the left side, is there is an imbalance between a pro-nociceptive factors and an anti-nociceptive factors. And these are the ones which have been disrupted post-mask wear, because these are matched samples before and after mask wearing lifestyle. So there was a clear molecular distinction between classical dry eye and the discomfort they have experienced post-mask wear. So you can continue with that, Dr. Pooja.
So the second question was, like, a lot of them are highlighting the point that the exhaled air is going towards your eye. It's entering the eye. So of course, it's creating a hypocapnia on your ocular surface. So do you think that this hypocapnia on the ocular surface will have an impact on your eye?
We did answer that question by performing an in vitro experiment where you can see the patterns which you see in the bar graphs to the right have clearly indicated that it has recapitulated what was observed in the tear in the previous table which you have seen. On top of that, not only the tear factors change the way we were picked up from the subjects, there was a reduction in the osmolarity. In dry eye or dryness, it's usually increased osmolarity. In our in vitro system, both in the corneal epithelial cells as well as corneal scleral rim, we saw a decrease in hypoosmolarity or decrease in osmolarity following hypercapnia. So there is a distinct difference.
So we all know that, the clinical outcomes will impact the tear molecular factors and the immune factors. So in spite of higher ocular discomfort or altered immune profiling, hypercapnia, why is the tear film stability unaltered? Why is there is an increase in their Schirmer's value and T-BERT value?
But that question was answered by our clinical colleagues because they knew that hypercapnia induces mucin secretion in the respiratory tract. And we went directly with that information. And what we see in the patient subject tears is that there was an increase in mucins, as well as in our hypocapnia in vitro corneoscleral explant, we saw an increase in mucins. Despite the creation of evaporative kind of a situation, there is an induction in mucin. Therefore, the TBUT and the tear film stability was maintained.
Perfect. So I think by this, we know that, of course, when we are dealing with dry eye, we are dealing with tear hyperosmolarity. But I think when we are having impact of mask on the ocular surface changes, we are actually not dealing with hyperosmolar ocular surface, but we are dealing with a hypoosmolar ocular surface. So my question to all my panelists and the colleagues is, will it have an impact on surgery, be it any ocular surface surgery, cataract, cornea, refractive, or glaucoma? Will it have treatment or impact on treatment outcomes? Topical management. The most important question apart from this is, which lubricant will work the best, and why will there be any higher chances of infection? What our preliminary results are showing is that yes, it might have an impact on delayed wound healing. Topical management might be ineffective, or we might have higher non-responders, so we might have to change the drug delivery system, increase risk of infection, which is not just observed by our group, but many other groups as well. Increased ocular discomfort, and probably if we don't take care of it and we go ahead and do a refractive surgery, they might land up into some complications. So I open this forum, these questions for discussion. But before that, I would like to thank our entire team back at Grow Lab and Narayan Netralaya for helping us do this wonderful work. Thank you.